What's up, guys? Brad here from Piney Grove, and we're not just content creators, but we're also content consumers. So we watch YouTube just like you guys do, and the inspiration for what I'm going to be doing in this video actually came from a big YouTube channel before we actually had a channel. You guys may watch them, you may not. They certainly don't need a shout out from us because they are so huge. But Good Simple Living moved to Idaho from the West Coast somewhere to escape all the madness in Seattle, I think. And they built a shop or a shed, and then they lived in part of it until they got their main house built. But they put up OSB in the walls, on the interior walls, and they painted them white. And I saw that video 4 years ago or so. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to paint this wall of my shop white. But before I paint the OSB, I want to put some primer over all this ink. The OSB that's in our house, in our garage, there is no writing on it. But this particular OSB that I bought has all this ink stamping on it. So I want to cover that with some Kills primer before I come back over with a coat of white. Once everything is prepped, painting's kind of fun, don't you think? I mean, do you guys do a lot of painting on your own? Do a lot of DIY projects? It's like the prep work is just really awful. It takes forever to get, everything prepped and to buy all the material. But then once you start painting, the actual process of painting, that's kind of fun. I know Kills is a good primer brand, so I bought Kills primer. And I bought their thick cover-up primer. I don't know that I needed it. I went out there and Googled what workshops use, and they said, some of them said just paint it white. It might bleed through a little bit, and then just put a second coat over that. But this is my forever shop. I've always wanted a nice shop. I've never had one, so I went ahead and bought some good stuff here. And hopefully this covers it up good and I get no bleed through. We do a lot of do-it-yourself things out here, but there's some things I always leave to the expert, and that is electrical. I'll do a little bit of plumbing, and I'll do a little bit of electrical, like burying lines underground, but as far as like hooking up electrical, even outlets, sometimes I have questions when I'm hooking up an outlet, and I don't know the answer, and I'm just scared to do it. So I had my electrician come and swap out some outlets for me. And he came out here, and I had some outdoor boxes from when we built my parents' house, and they were kind of unsightly on the side of the shed. So I had him remove those boxes and renew my outlets here along the wall because they were blank plates. Boy, this stuff is really covering good, at least so far. But the reason I mention that is just the high cost of everything. And he treats me right. He's $65 for a service call. So that's all it cost me in labor. About $20 in parts, and so he said like 80 bucks to do it, and I was happy. I was happy he did it. Gives me peace of mind. But just think about that. I gave him $100. I gave him a tip for coming out because he came out on a weekend. But $100 to put in an outlet and then put a blanking plate outside and make that outlet unusable. I certainly don't deny craftsmen or experts or tradesmen. They deserve to make a good living. Until you have to pay something like that, $100 for 2 outlets, you just don't realize how expensive building is. That's covering that good, but I can still see some black coming through there, so I'm glad I used this. This is called Kills Premium Heavy Duty High Hide, is what it says on the side of the can. I'm glad I went with the high hide. Wasn't sure if it was worth the extra $10 a gallon, but it's looking like it is. Spray foam is really white when it goes on, and if you don't paint it, it turns yellow. So we got a light yellow hue in here, which is fine, looks nice. But it really lightened or brightened up the inside of the shed, and as soon as we put this dark OSB up, it's like the shed got darker. So I'm not only doing this because I want just a real classy workbench, but also to brighten up the shed. This will really reflect a lot of light and just make it brighter in here. So let's face it, as we get older, our eyes don't get better. I'm very fortunate. My dad had an eye disease, and he basically died blind, and it skipped me. The way it works is it does the daughter's son. So I'm the son, and I didn't have any daughters, so the disease died with me and my sister, because my sister had 2 girls. She didn't have any boys, so she didn't pass it along. So in our family, at least on this side, that bad gene is gone. So what do you think so far? I mean, obviously we've just done a couple passes here, but I think it looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and do this, the seam here, because there's a little bit of red. And I don't know what that red does on the edge of OSB, but all OSB has some kind of color on its edge. And I'm just gonna cover that up. This is not a how-to channel. We are a how we do channel. This is a 44-foot long wall. At this point, just covering up the black ink and the red seams here, I've used about ½ a gallon. So if you're wondering what kind of coverage to do on your wall, again, 44-foot wall, I'm probably going to end up using this whole gallon on the problem areas, and then whatever I have left, I'll just go ahead. Maybe I'll do like the whole bathroom. I'll prime all of that. But I don't think I'll have to get into the 2nd gallon. But this is covering up really well. Some places I got to take the roller and go side by side and fill in all the voids in the OSB, but way easier than I thought. With that paint on it, it's going to be fairly smooth and, you know, easy to keep clean if you slap some grease on the wall when you're working on your workbench or something. I think it's going to be real easy to clean up. Miss Piney Grove, come here and tell these folks what we're doing.
The builder's coming because we got to figure out, we're going to have one step up to the porch, and we've got to figure out how we want that step, the shape that we want that step, and how big we want that step. So I was thinking of like a semicircle step up, but I don't know if that will look different on a square long porch. So I was laying out bricks, trying to figure out, well, it looks good. Now I need Brad to come give me his opinion. So the mudroom step.
Don't let her fool you. My opinion does not matter.
He says his opinion doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. Certain things I want to win on, but the front stoop is something I think we need to agree on, because we're both going to look at it all the time, and I don't want it to be my fault if he doesn't like it.
It looks pretty good now with the brick on the porch and the brick on the stoop, so we just got to figure that out. That's just kind of an extra there. But what do you think about this? I had told him that you didn't want me to put OSB because it would darken it, and now that you see a little white up here, what do you think?
It makes a world of difference. As soon as I poked in here, it looks so much better. It just brightened it up. I think spray foam's cool, and I like the texture spray foam, but this looks really, really good. This is actually brighter than the spray foam, so good job.
So I got the rest of this wall done here. I went to the bathroom and I did, let's call it 3 sides, because it's not completely sheathed in there. But what I found is I used scraps to do the inside of that bathroom. You can see the square on the top there. So that back wall is 4 pieces, and all that was leftover scraps from building our house. And each of those, or that OSB, has different absorption rate than this OSB here. So while the paint stayed on the outside of this, those had like bigger strands in it, strands of wood, and it really soaked up the paint. So I'm almost done with the gallon of paint. And as I look across here where I've done, or primer, it's not paint, where I've done, there's a bit of black bleed through, but I think it'll be fine. I think I could top coat it, no problem with white. But since I've got the extra gallon, what I'm going to do is finish out this little bit of spreading that I have to do here, and then I think I'm going to open up the 2nd gallon after this dries and do this whole wall. And that way there will be no doubt on the bleed through, because what I don't want is to have to go over this twice with white paint if one coat will do, like where it's been primed nicely, as opposed to the areas that aren't primed at all. So the next time you see me, I'll have the 2nd gallon done after this dries, or the 2nd gallon out, and I'll go down this whole wall. We'll get this whole wall primed, let that sit for a few hours, and then hopefully by tonight we can put the white paint on here, and then we can start building this wall out. So if you found this video because you were looking to see how to sheathe the inside of a metal building with wood, or how to paint OSB, let me tell you what I learned today. Number 1, this is probably the best way to do it. I got Kills 3. I'll give you a screenshot of exactly what I bought. It's about $30 some a can. So this 44-foot by 8-foot tall wall, to include the bathroom, was about $60-some in primer. And the first coat, the first gallon, did a good job with all of the black ink that was on here. So that covered that up pretty good. But as it dried, I started to see some bleed through, and also speckled throughout the OSB were these little black round, I don't know if they were mold dots or just ink dots. They were just little black dots. Well, they were bleeding through where I had painted the first gallon. So I decided I had 2 gallons. I was going to save the second gallon. I decided to do the whole thing. And I'm glad I did, because I noticed as I was going down the line that the second coat of primer was really helping to fill in the gaps of the OSB. The OSB is a very porous material, so the overlapping strands have a lot of holes in them. And when you roll it out the first time, you think you fill most of them in, but it absorbs a lot. So the second one just kind of makes everything smoother, or you just don't see the voids like you did with just one coat. So I'm glad I went ahead and invested the time and the money to double prime it. Now, is this wall good enough to use in a shop with a white primer on it? It probably is, but I think I'm going to be really impressed with the top coat, because the top coat won't have to fill in the voids because they're already filled in. We'll let this dry probably at least 12 hours, if not close to 24 hours. So about this time tomorrow, we'll put on the top coat. And I think that's going to slide on real nice. It's not going to require as much paint, and it's not going to have as much work to do. That paint is simply going to be the top finish and not have to go into the cracks and crevices and fill and be thick. I think that's going to go on easier, and it's going to give it a much better look and also a much better feel, because I think this primer has really trapped in all those fibers of OSB. And if you've ever worked with OSB, it's got a lot of sharp fibers in it. So when you're cutting it and you're nailing it and screwing it up on a wall, you're getting all these splinters in you. And even on the smooth side, you'll feel it a little bit. So I think I've eliminated all that by filling in all them voids and covering up all those sharp edges with the primer. And the top coat, it's just going to make that smooth. Not as smooth as, say, a flat board, but a lot smoother than I think OSB was meant to be. But that's going to wrap up today's video, folks. We sure appreciate you watching. Be sure to stay tuned. We're not only working on this building, we're also building our house. That is a weekly update on that house. And then we're just always doing lots of projects here on Piney Grove, getting ready for that last step in our life when we're going to be living out here and just enjoying the land. But we appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, y'all.